Welcome back, everyone, to the VIBE Edu Podcast. I am with Kim Gameroz, TJ Vari, and Mitch Weathers. Myself, Joshua Snappers, hosting here right now as we are kicking things off on the second episode of the series under student behavior. And today we're going to be talking about things we need to stop doing and what we could do instead. So with that topic, who wants to kick us off? Because we had a very vibrant discussion before pushing record. And maybe some of it was probably good that it wasn't on the recording, since with that passion, maybe we would have had to put that little E next to the episode. But maybe we will still need that rating and review based on what the comment is. But who wants to kick us off? If you don't, I'm gonna get on my rant.
I mean, I could totally do it. I just got back yesterday. Well, this morning, 1 a.m. I flew in, got in at 1 a.m. I know, that's good reaction. From visiting some schools. And it is just such a good reminder of what is really going on when we're talking about student behaviors. And so me coaching elementary school teachers, we were in TK classrooms all the way through sixth grade classrooms. And I think the best part truly is, like, not only do we work with the teachers, but we also work with the principals. And so I think that we should probably start our conversation today talking about principals and what they tend to do, or maybe that's the only tool that's inside their toolbox to pull out. And then I think we should talk about what really works for them. So I think, Josh, we should talk about the big behaviors and how teachers are sending kids to the principal's office. And then now the kid is sitting there, and then, like, what happens usually?
Yeah. So Kim, I was at a school not too long ago, and it turned into a kind of a coaching situation with the principal and this is one thing I would change. And the comment was that if I allow the student to do behavior X, then everyone else will do it. And I want to push back on that so hard, because that's not true. And I know that as almost a decade in the admin role dealing with student behavior, the students, and I think TJ maybe even referenced this before, if you look at the student body and I think TJ, you talked about this, right? As far as going to your staff and saying, hey, we had a great day today because 99% of our students did the things that we wanted, right? They went to where they were supposed to, they behaved wonderfully, and they learned. Congratulations, right? And I really feel like, unfortunately, that administrators don't have this viewpoint, and they have this idea of power and what that looks like. And why are we doing a power trip with an elementary student about getting the student to their office? Okay, why the hell do we need to have a conversation in the principal's office? Can we consider maybe something else? Like, how about take a walk with the child outside? Specifically, if they're outside, like in this situation, the student is outside. Okay, so let's think about, what's the first step when a student is dysregulated? Is it to have a power trip, or is it to regulate that student? Maybe build a stronger relationship with them, get them to a place where they actually want to have a conversation with you, instead of having it as, I'm the principal, do what I say now. And if you don't, then we're going to go down this conveyor belt of punishment until I get you to comply. Is compliance really what we are seeking? I would say no, that is not the goal of an administrator. The goal of an administrator is to teach the appropriate behavior so that after the student is regulated, they're able to make good choices moving forward. So if you think that this dysregulated child is going to be the bad apple for the entire school, and that everyone's going to see that behavior and say, you know what, I think that behavior is something that I want to do also, you are insane. So stop that thinking. I don't want to hear that out of your mouth. That is ridiculous. So please think about it. 95, 98, 99% of your students are doing the right thing because they know what to do. But there are some students that may be under a special ed label. Maybe they are dysregulated. Maybe there's some trauma going on at home. There's a million reasons why that kid is triggered in that moment. But the most important thing is not compliance. So please stop it.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Good talk done.
That's awesome. Was that Josh's first rant, like real rant, like on the show? I mean, he's done the rant before, but not like that. That was great.
That was good.
I'm fired up right now. I can keep going, but I'm going to let someone else talk.
Well, I want to say something, because I love what you said about asking, like, why, what's going, like what. I think my mentor teachers and I had a big conversation after our first day out there. And what we said was, I kind of don't like the phrase like get to the why. I would say ask like what is going on at home? What is going on? I don't know, outside on the playground. I think those questions are super important to ask instead of like, I don't know, I get bothered by the get to the why. And I think it annoys teachers too. So if you ask what, that's usually what I say, what's going on at home? And then usually it's like a, well, and then I'm like, oh, of course. Then are you surprised or acting this way? I love what you said about the principal making the connection with the kid and going on a walk. But honestly, you know what I love even more is I love a principal being able to go into the classroom and the teacher is able to go outside and go on that walk with the child and make that strong connection, because that child is with the teacher the majority of the day, not with the principal. Like, we don't want that relationship to be super, super strong. And I think a principal that we were with just yesterday, she was like, I have that relationship with this kid. And she was talking about a behavior. She's like, the teacher needs to have the relationship with the kid. And I think that's what's so special about when I do come in is I then equip the teachers with the skills to then create that connection, because they will say usually, I don't know how to have a connection with this kid. Like, I'm done with this kid. Or they think that they do, and then it's still not working and they're getting frustrated. So I think that's, I don't know. Those are things like to do, not to do, I think, when you're talking about that.
Yeah, lots of mistakes right there too. And I made that mistake early on as an assistant principal. I was an ornery kid, so I have a lot of empathy for the ornery kids. And then they would flock to me. And so they would like act up just to get out of the classroom to come to my office because I had a relationship with them. And I learned quickly that the better strategy was to build the relationship between the teacher and the student. And then I'm done with the kid, man, they feel that right away. Like, if you've said that, even in the absence of the student, they know it. They can feel it. And then you being done with them just means that their behavior is going to escalate. And to Josh's point, I couldn't help but think about fair and equal are not the same thing. And we want to apply these same principles to every kid. And it just doesn't work that way. And that's not in the spirit of differentiation, which I could do a whole rant on the fake news about differentiation. But yeah, like, you can't apply the same practices to every single kid. That's a mistake. Not making the exception is a mistake. When I was assistant super, I had principals, directors, supervisors. I was saying this before the show started, and all of them would say, if you make that exception, you're opening up a can of worms. And I used to say, bring me the worm. I've never seen a worm. Because making exceptions for people doesn't mean that everybody else is going to want that exception. And I'm fine with saying to somebody who shows up and says, well, how come I can't have that? Well, we made an exception for that person and we're not going to make another one. Like, you have to be strong enough to know, like, yeah, this kid's not going to sit compliant in the office after not sitting compliant in the classroom. That's ludicrous.
I mean, wait, hold on. Speaking of that, let me just give you an example, because I did see a kiddo. I was in the classroom, saw this kiddo, probably the biggest of the big in the classroom. There were other big, like standing on top of chairs, blurting out, like screaming at the teacher, right? Like, all of those things were happening. And the biggest of that group of 4 or 5 behaviors ended up in the principal's office. Well, later in the day, I'm walking by the principal's office, and that kid was like, the side of his face was like on the window and like literally like licking the window. And I was like, now he's regulated. Now things are going to be good. And I literally giggled and I was like, oh, babe. I mean, that was like my reaction, you know? So yeah, it doesn't get like, just going to the principal's office and being like confined in there doesn't all of a sudden make them like regulated all of a sudden. Like, that's not how this happens. That's not how this works.
Or even talking at the kid when he gets it. Kids would come down to my office and I'd say, take a seat. And then I'd turn and start doing work on my computer. And they're like, aren't you going to tell me something? And I'm like, not yet. And they'd be squirming in their chairs, you know? And they'd be like, what's the punishment? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know yet. Chill out for a second. I got to finish this email.
Me and TJ had very similar strategies in our office.
And then lo and behold, the kid would be like, bored, you know? I'm like, you good now?
But it's worth noting everything that's being shared is all predicated on student relationships. Like you have to, if you're going to differentiate consequences or responses, it means you have to know the kid to do that, right? So misbehavior, I think, is, if we're going to respond at all, it just comes back to kids have to feel known. They have to feel cared for. I remember having students, and I worked on this really hard. Like the kid that, like, if they happened to be absent, you were like, yes, you know, like, I'm just not going to have to work this hard in 5th period today. And then when they would show up and you were like, okay, it's game on, you know, and not in like a battle. I would greet them at the door. I missed you yesterday. Like just trying to like almost overwrite, to be honest, the narrative in my head. Because there was students at times that it was just easier to get through the day if they weren't there. I hate to say that out loud, but it's completely true. Or the same like classes that are just harder than others. As a secondary teacher, right? There's just those classes that there's more of, Kim, what you saw going on in certain periods, right? And so I got into the habit of telling those classes, you know, don't say this to anybody else, but you're my favorite class. And I would bring donuts privately to that class. And I would just keep showering them and trying to get to know them. And sure enough, much of that just kind of subsided. And I think it's because, one, I was getting to know them, and two, they just want to be liked and want to feel cared for. And it's also worth noting from not just a school leader perspective, educator perspective, that this idea of regulation can really be weaponized in and of itself, right? And we have to be, this comes back to relationships, because what it means to calm down looks different for different cultures, different people. Like if you don't know them, then the idea of sitting quietly, sitting still in a principal's office so that you can calm down may actually be dysregulating the student even further. So understanding like that cultural context, it just means you have to know them. Like maybe it is the walk outside. Maybe it's not. But I think we can't make those intentional decisions until we know the kid, right?
It's better to ask the kid when they're regulated what would be the best strategy for you, like, and you can give them some.
And that's developing a relationship with a young person.
Yeah, like,
or asking the parents if they're too young, if they don't even know, you know, maybe the parents have something to provide that helps at home that could be used in the school setting.
Yeah, like next time that happens, what do you think we should do?
Right. Well, and to your point, TJ and Josh, both like being in the office and just like, you know, not being like, sit down and calm down.
Calm down.
That's not
use your words
for a kid. Like, right. And yet at the same time, I used to tell from a teacher lens, I knew those kids that were just trying to get out of class.
Oh, for sure.
And I would tell them, I'm like, you know what? I don't send people to the office. In fact, I don't even know how to do that, because we're going to solve everything here. This is our community.
Yep.
And unless it's something that I just have to, by creed or law, send you away, I'm not sending you away. So we're going to have to figure that out here. We can solve our problems here. You know, you're not going to give me detention. I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. There's some process, and I honestly didn't. I was like, I'm not going to give you detention. We're going to figure it out here. And that's just real life, right? Sometimes things go well. Sometimes we got to work through some stuff, but I'm not going to reward you. Your ass is not going to the principal's office. So you're here.
So Mitch, you mean them sitting there silently isn't going to magically change their behavior in the future? That's what you're saying?
I don't think so.
That's crazy.
And how productive is that? You're giving the power to the kid and to the principal in that case. I didn't know how to write kids up either. Like I didn't have that many problems as a teacher, but I do have this scenario where I used to if I had to send a kid into the hallway to take a break or whatever, or if I did have to write a kid up for something, I always tried to get to that kid before they returned to my classroom the next day. Like I didn't want them to walk over the threshold thinking that we had beef. And I didn't have beef. Like as soon as it went away from me. They're kids. Like we're going to hold it against them. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I said to a kid one time, I was like, I don't even argue with 16-year-olds. Like you're not arguing with, I'm not going to argue back. Like it's not in my, my vocabulary to do that. But I will tell you this one time, this kid was so disruptive in my class. These were juniors or seniors. And there was nothing I could do because he was just messing it up for everybody else. So I said, listen, I want you to go down to the office or whatever. I didn't even know where the office was. So the kid went to the disciplinary office. And right after class, I went running down there to try to catch the kid before he went to the next period. And I said to the disciplinarian, where's the kid? And they go, well, we suspended him and sent him home. I was like, what? You suspended him? I just let him out of the room for a little while. And they were like, yeah, but you've never done that. Yeah. And so we assumed that it was so bad that we should suspend the kid. And I'm like, next, if that ever happens again,
send them back.
Send the kid, send them back. I don't want to suspend the kid. I just needed the other kids to take a break.
But you bring up a good point. There is like, I don't want teachers on this listening to this to feel that if you have 5 kids standing on their desks and shouting at you, and there are times, and that really is one of those thresholds where, and it's ed code in most states, like if you're disrupting the learning environment, if it's no longer productive and safe for other students in the room, at that point, I might need to remove you because there's only so much I can do if it's me and 20 of you or me and 36 of you as a high school teacher. But that's the relationship piece, TJ. Like I think most students who are labeled as, disruptive students expect, right? They actually, Josh can preach on this all day about it's a communication piece, but you know how that is. Like I get attention when I act this way, but if you change the narrative, hey, this just happened. Things happen. I want you back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to make sure we're cool. Because then the next day it's that reset. But I don't want anybody hearing that like, oh, you should be able to magically handle every situation and not remove a kid. Right. I don't think removing a kid means suspending a kid all the time, but
You have to have a strategy though. That's the point. Like you can't have this friction with a kid and then you're just that's not going to go away unless you're strategic. And that's just going to frustrate everybody for the whole time the kid is there. So let's figure that out. And what I'm saying is lots of times that's not going to get figured out in the classroom. It's going to get figured out in between when the kid is there and not there.
But it also requires, because sorry, Josh.
No, you're good.
But I think it's also worth noting. We don't have an E next to this episode.
We can.
I almost just said.
If you want,
at times
I'm ready to bust
mess up too. I was going to use a different word that has a little more oomph to it because it's true. Teachers are not perfect. We get dysregulated. We get tired. Yeah. We have bad days. We fight with our partners and spouses. Our kids can be a pain in the butt. I mean, all that stuff, it's this messy human to human endeavor. And so having the ability to say, I'm sorry to a young person and own your shit in that interaction, because it's probably both. And that unlocks, like some kids, you'll see them just like, it's okay. I'm like, no, it's actually not okay. I'm an adult and I acted this way and I need to apologize and I'm going to try not to do that. And you'll see it's disarming, but we have to be strong enough to step into that vulnerable space and just own it when it was on us. Even
Well,
if
it's
it was
modeling communication. That's modeling regulation too. I mean, you can co-regulate with a child and actually walk them through that process, because again, we can't assume that the students have that in their wheelhouse to understand their emotions and to get themselves in a regulated state. So, that's that teach piece again. But if you're dysregulated, hey, I'm feeling this way, and communicating that to the student, which is okay to do, and then sharing how you're going to take a break in the moment. We're both going to take a break, and these are the steps that we're going to do to get our brain in a good spot so that we can have a productive conversation. And kids respond to that. You're being honest with them. This is how I'm feeling based on the behavior that you just exhibited. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you make them feel terrible and you label them and you tell them how you can't wait for them to go away, I mean, obviously that's going to be a break in the relationship. But if you're doing it in a great space where you want it to be something where the relationship is intact and healthy, then communicate that with them, and then teach them the steps that you're doing that may work for them also in that moment. The student's going to appreciate that way more if you're transparent in that situation. Kim, to your point about teachers maybe feeling frustrated that they're not having that conversation, I just want to touch on the push-in real quick, if you don't mind, because I think this is something, if you're an admin or even if you're a teacher, this is something you can implement today, right? This is real world stuff. As an administrator, the reason we put in a push-in model was because everything Kim was talking about. Teachers are frustrated, right? There's disrespect or something going on in the classroom that they had to send them away, and they didn't want to do that because they knew the principal or whoever was dealing with the discipline was going to get a better relationship with them. They're going to understand what's going on behind the scenes. And there was a fracture in the relationship because I'm sending you away now, right? And now I have to mend that, similar to what TJ was talking about. So not every teacher has the opportunity to run down to the front office to try and mend that relationship between classes. And so what happens is this buildup, and there's animosity when the student comes back. And a lot of times it's not just animosity with the kid, but also with parents, right? Because a lot of times they don't understand the consequence related to the action. So the push-in model is just someone going to relieve, and it doesn't have to be an admin. It could be anyone. We literally had a schedule for teachers, coaches, counselors, social worker, administrators, anyone that's able to go into that classroom to relieve them for 3 to 5 minutes, allow the teacher to go out with the student, take a little walk, get maybe a drink of water, ask some questions about what's going on in the world to understand what's going on with behavior. And then communicating the expectations of what's going to happen once they go back into the educational environment. And what we saw as admin is thousands of minutes going back into the classroom, which of course then help the culture of the school because teachers are having better relationships with their kids. We're seeing ISS numbers go way down because it's low levels staying in the classroom, but then also grades went up, test scores went up because the kids that need it the most would not be sitting in the front office or ISS for 45 minutes, an hour, half a day, fill in the blank for low level infractions when all it really needed was a one-on-one conversation with someone to figure out what's going on in their world. Is there resources that are needed? Do we need to have some bigger things, or can we just go right back into the education environment? So if this is something, if you're a teacher and you're like, I don't know if my admin can do this for me, you can even do this with team teachers. Like, hey, let's build this together, right? So someone during their off period can come in. I've seen it on a low level where they've built it themselves to relieve teachers to have this opportunity. If you're an admin, this is something that you can easily do for your entire staff. And our teachers loved it because then they don't have to wait for the communication from the administrator about what's going on in the kid's life, what's going on, because that's the biggest thing that teachers feel like there's a huge gap is they want to help. They just don't feel like they have the time or the opportunity to do that.
And if it's admin, you could call it a classroom visit, right, TJ?
Oh, yeah. I think it's advantageous on both sides because the administrator is typically dealing with the kids who get sent out. Now they're able to build relationships with the kids who don't get sent out because they're in the classroom with the kids who they might not be able to build a relationship with. I love that. Yeah. And doesn't have to mean that you're teaching the math lesson. Just go in there and do some fun stuff.
We used to do relationship. Like if I went in the room, I would be like, hey, everyone stand up. Let's do a relationship circle. And then we'd throw out some crazy question and get everyone to participate, right? I mean, you can do that for like 2-3 minutes. And then teacher comes in. All right, guys, take a seat. We're going to get back to the lesson. I mean, it was something so simple. Or sometimes they were doing independent work. So it was just going around and asking kids, hey, what are you guys working on? What project? Fill me in. Let's talk about it. can I help you in any way? Stuff like that. I mean, it was super fun to go into a classroom and see what was going on, but also it was awesome to see the relationship being built between the teacher and the student on a deeper level, and the teacher appreciating the opportunity to have that. Where in the past that was just like, I guess, go out of my class, go to the front office.
Okay. I've been literally dying, shoving all of my thoughts, keeping my thoughts in my thought bubble, writing them down. That's my tool. I'm literally writing them down because I know that when we say to a teacher, you get to then, create this bond and relationship with this kid, they're going, well, how do I do that? Like, what does that sound like? And so 2 different conversations I just want to give teachers today, because these are things that I do and I will model, and I can instantly connect with the kid in 2 seconds. And every time I walk out, the teacher's like, how in the world were you able to do that? And so I want to teach you how. So the first thing is, and this is just an example of what literally happened 2 days ago, was a kid who had a band around their chair for their feet to kick, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I got you. We got some high energy, was standing on the chair, was blurting out, was wandering, was running, was doing all these things. I was like, I got you. You're a cutie patootie, and I'm going to get you under my spell. So how do I do that? They weren't working, and the teacher was like, that one. And I was like, yeah, I see that one. I see that one, and 10 others, right? So I go over and I was like, hey, it's writing. And they were like, yeah. I was like, what's tricky about writing? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, well, let's figure this out. Is it tricky to open up your desk? So they have the desk that open up and then the stuff is inside. So you can kind of picture that. I was like, is it tricky to open up your desk? And the teacher was like, it's task avoidance. And I was like, okay, hush for just 2 seconds, because we're going to get to what's really going on, because I don't think it's task avoidance. I think something is tricky for this kid to get to work, and we're going to figure out what that is. So is it tricky to open up your desk? And the kid's like, no. And I was like, let's open up your desk. Opens up the desk. And now it's you can imagine what the inside of a desk looked like, right? Stuff everywhere, pencils, scissors, everything is everywhere. Papers are out of all the binders and folders, right? That's what the inside of the desk looked like. And I just started with the first thing on top of the desk, because what's the goal? I want you to work on writing, but you got to find where your writing is, right? And so I just started with the first thing on the desk, inside the desk. Is it tricky to pick up that math book? No. Is it tricky to pick up that folder right there, the red folder? No. Is it tricky to open up that red folder and see what's inside? No. So this kid is literally doing all the things that I want them to do. And guess what? After the scissors were out and another folder was out and other papers and whatever were out, we finally found the writing. And guess what the kid did? They sat there and they wrote the whole time. Now, after I was with them, of course, he's like, what in the world just happened? Right? Every single day, I've just been sitting here doing absolutely nothing and running the muck. And so now all of a sudden he's like, I think I need some time to process this. And what this kid did was went to that calm space in the classroom and then was set the timer. I was like, wow, doing everything that's been taught, everything that's expected. Sat there for a bit. I kind of looked at him, gave him a thumbs up, you cool? And he was like, yeah. And then he came back to his chair, had noise canceling headphones on, and literally wrote the entire time, you guys. It was magic. Now, if you can do that with one, guess what? You can do it with the other one and another one and another one. And getting to that tricky part is going to be game changing because it's predictable. Is writing going to happen again the next day? Yeah. Is that kid going to be expected to write? Yeah. But if you already have, let's just say, that writing paper ready to give them, because that was tricky to get in the desk and find, that's going to be a game changer. Well, there's a whole conversation behind that, but I also want to give another conversation. The other one is explaining the social emotional chain reaction, which is your behaviors affect the thoughts and feelings of other people around you, including me, your teacher, including your peers, which then affects how we're going to react towards you, how we're going to treat you, me as a teacher, right? I might snap at you if it's unexpected. Your peers might look at you and give you a dirty look. They might snap at you also and yell at you across the room, tell you to stop or whatever. And if we do that towards you, how is that going to make you feel? Awful, mad, angry, embarrassed, right? But it's also true about what's expected. If you are choosing expected behaviors, the people around you are going to have comfortable thoughts and feelings. And then we're going to, I don't know, you might earn dojo points. You might earn pom-poms in a little jar, right? You might get praise. I might say good job. Your peers might want to hang out with you. And if we react towards you that way, then you're going to feel calm, cool, comfortable, happy, excited. And that's how I want you to feel in this classroom. So what's expected? Just take the writing time, for example. What's expected during writing time? It's expected to get out your materials right away. And guess what? I would love to support you in that. I would love to just have your materials by my desk. And every single time it's writing, I could just give them to you. How does that feel? And what's a kid going to say? That'd be awesome. Great. And then how do you end it? This is, I guess, the third thing. Really, I want them to add vocabulary. And tomorrow will be a better day. And I know last time, Mitch, you were talking about like cadence and like your tone and your tempo. And if you can say it like that, I'm speaking to elementary school teachers, but really adjust it for middle school, high school. If you say it like that to a kid, and I know that tomorrow will be a better day. What happens is those kids that continuously get under your skin and you're having these same but different conversations all the time, you're at the very end of the day, when they come up to you, you're going to say, and tomorrow will be, and guess what the kid's going to say? A better day. And that's what I want. I have chills thinking about it because I know when we repair these relationships, like I hate repair the relationship. I hate connect with kids. Like I can't stand it. Like this is the how, you guys. This is what it looks like. And this is what it sounds like to do all of that. And this is what changes behavior in kids and relationships between students and teachers.
I think I feel like we need to do a whole nother episode on just this stuff, like what not to do. And then what replacement behaviors for teachers, principals, school leaders, because I know we're coming on time and I have so many other things.
I was thinking the same thing, TJ.
Hey, I mean, it's just, there's so many practices, the clip down charts. I want to talk about that. Like the not using proximity with kids and how to do that well. There's so many other things I want to talk about. I will say though, Kim, a lot of what you said is established in the first days of school. That culture and the apology, and here's how I behave when you behave that way, and here's what we're going to do if this happens. It starts in the first days of school. That doesn't mean, though, that we're doomed now for people who are listening for the rest of the school year. You can recreate those first days after a break, like even a 3-day weekend. Start over. Let the kids take a break at home, bring them back after spring break or whatever it is, and start over with culture building, especially after a break like a week, a spring break, a 10-day. You almost need to anyway, because they've been running around outside for 10 days straight and not sitting at their desk and writing, to use Kim's example. But I would just encourage people to go back to the basics after a short break and reestablish the classroom culture so that we all know what's expected of us, including the teacher.
I have one shameless plug here. For that first kid in his desk, are we seeing the connection between an organized binder and behavior? Right. If everything has a place where it lives, it's more likely to find its way home. And if I know where that home is, then all of a sudden I can find it. And it's not a stretch to say, right? But when you look at the book bag, let's not forget that Drive, Google Classroom, whatever LMS you use can just be the digital version of the book bag. And what I like about the book bag is we can see it.
Yep.
What I like about the desk is you're like, oh,
yep,
wow, but we can see it, right? And now we can take action. But to think through what organization does for kids and how it grounds them and helps with behavior is often overlooked or not made. There's no connection made to it. So,
well, and if you put that headphones on, then he's already got a sensory overload. So like, there's got to be some other things that are overloading his brain in addition. And Mitch, I know you were ticking over there while she was talking about that desk. So I'm glad you said something. But I mean, obviously this student's got a lot more needs just in that small little snapshot that you gave us, Kim, that is going to probably require a little more assistance to get them to where they need based on not only the environment, but then also like you were talking about, like the order of tasks to get them. And then once they're there, obviously there's great production moving forward.
Mm-hmm. But there's those orders, those tasks that stick, that routine, the predictable routine will only happen if students have access to or know where to find the things that are part of that routine. It's not enough to just say, this is the routine. I mean, that's kind of like saying, calm down. You're like, you're looking at a kid, we're making assumptions like, well, I've been really clear about the routine. Why aren't you doing it? Yep. And it's like, well, no, we got to lead with curiosity. Like, what's going on there? Mm-hmm. But if I've seen it, the empowerment that happens when a kid knows how to get and then stay organized. Just getting organized one day is not enough, right? Mm-hmm. It's repetition over time, which is where routine comes in.
I'm not a fan of the backpack or the desk as a tool, really. And I'm not about
enabling for organization.
Yeah, and I'm not about enabling kids, but I learned pretty quick as a teacher that it was better to have the routine, have the binder, keep it organized day after day. And I was a shelf collector. Like I wanted every kid to have their binder in a spot on the shelf. And then tomorrow when you get here, you go get your binder and you bring it to the desk because like the desk full of stuff. And I also learned that as an administrator too. Like I tried to organize a kid's backpack and then see him a week later and it was disorganized again. So if it's not daily, every day, daily, it's not going to work.
Not as a, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. It's this, I don't know if I've brought this up with you guys yet, but the native Hawaiian expression, makahana kaike. I've told you about that. Like the knowings and the doing. I have to do this every day, not because I'm being told to, but because it's part of the routine. It's part of how we do school. Mm-hmm. When we're getting ready to read, there's this step, this step, this step. Well, those steps aren't going to happen if I don't have that organizational piece. And it's Lisa Delpit's work around, we have to be careful not to remove the very explicitness. A child needs to understand the rules of a new classroom culture. And that's every day. That doesn't mean you're being overbearing or authoritarian, or it's making no assumptions. That which is implied, I'm going to make explicit. I'm going to paint those gray areas black and white. And all of a sudden it has a huge impact on behaviors, and kids feel better when they're organized. I know that for a fact. Yeah.
TJ, I will say that COVID sucked in the moment, but afterwards, the removal of lockers was a game changer for some of our students because it was just a dumping ground for so many things. And so to remove that one thing, I know backpacks is a separate issue and they had those, but I will say it really streamlined a lot of things that were excessive and didn't really have any value. And it was amazing to go through that process of like, oh, why didn't we do this before? Like it gave us this opportunity to kind of reflect, and not to like usurp the conversation, but in regards to organization specifically, lockers, getting rid of those, game changer.
I'm going to jump in, Kim, even though I just said that. Getting rid of the lockers, yes. But then all the crap that went into the lockers in middle school and high school has to have a place where it goes, or it's just going to get stuffed somewhere else. And it's worth saying, this is my parent. What?
Well, to agree, because like the locker is so large that our kids would bring stuff because they knew they could store it and leave it in the locker. So when you remove that, your backpack only has so much area in it. So a lot of things, I'm agreeing with you, Mitch, in the sense that there was still disorganization in the backpack, but to a greater point, they didn't have as much space because they had their backpack, plus they had a locker. And so when you remove the locker, it's, a basketball is not coming to school because they can't fit it anywhere, or, like a skateboard can, or fill in the blank as to what crazy item they have, or, a bunch of lunches, get stuffed in there and rotten smell and whatnot. Like there were so many other things that kids in middle school, it just alleviated a lot of things. Let's just say.
I get that.
My point is, Did you say hats or pets?
Pets.
Yeah, I know.
I've had kids bring up their pet to.
Oh, pet. You said pet. I thought you said hat. Oh, good God.
No,
Yeah.
like a live animal in their backpack, not in their locker, thank goodness. But so point being, all I'm saying here, Josh, is oftentimes things not like basketballs and skateboards and pets or hats, but oftentimes things we look at the book bag, and it's everything we've been talking about here is we're looking at the kid going, what the hell is going on with your book bag? And then you go with them to their classes and you're like, oh, you're getting all this stuff and there's no organizational system in this class. And that's the power of like collective efficacy. Well, what if we all adopted just the same, even just organizational system? If I'm going to hand you something or you're going to create something, it must have a place where it lives. If not, just don't do it. Or just recycle it at the end of the class period. And for heaven's sake, if you have a binder required in your class, you have to 3-hole punch everything that you give kids.
I know. Wow.
Because this is my parent hat. And I'm not allowed to say anything to my kids' teachers about organization because I'm the organized binder guy. But she's just like, Dad, I don't know what to do with all this stuff. But my teacher told us how important it is. And half of it's 3-hole punched. And then a bunch of it's not. It's just like, I'm like, yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna be quiet. We're getting on the organization thing, and I'm gonna just railroad.
I think we do that the next episode. Because I'm pushing stuff down, and I've been writing notes, and so I say maybe the next time, like
the next series on organization.
Yes, I think that like when their brains are like this, of course, the organization also the inside of the backpack, the inside of the desk, the binder, whatever it is, the folder, it also looks like chaos. So yeah, I mean. I'm going to shove it down. I think we got to wrap it up. But
if we're going to have there's got to be a model, right? That's another thing.
Don't talk about it or save it for next time.
Okay.
Go, Josh.
Lockers are the devil.
With you, Mitch. I'm going
to end that. I'm going to end it with that.
I liked having lockers, but we had smaller ones.
Talk about dysregulation and adding something to a kid's plate, especially a 6th grader. So many problems, but I'm going to push it down, just like Kim told me. So I'm pushing it down.
Can we remember to come back to that? Will you remember that, Josh?
Tomorrow.
Because I think the locker for middle school and high school.
I saw steam from her pencil because she was writing so violently.
Write that down, whoever, because
I'm waiting for a small fire.
Can be a good thing.
Okay. With that,
something has to happen for that.
We're going to wrap this up.
I used my Edutopia pen.
Look at you.
It's because you write with them all the time.
Yeah, they sent this to me.
You write with Edutopia, which everyone needs to go check out TJ's work. He does brilliant work. All right, so this is episode 2 for student behavior. Obviously, this is a conversation that will continue. We'll see where it goes next, episode 3 in the series. But for anyone that's listening, if you have any additional questions, maybe we said something, but we maybe just touched on it a little bit, and you want more information from that, as a VIBE Edu crew, we've all agreed that we're going to do a solo episode, which is a mailbag, which is going to go deeper. And it could be on this topic of student behavior or something previously in a previous series. So if there's something that you want us to expand on, maybe riff a little bit further, please let us know. And you can do that either in the comment section with Spotify or the comment section in YouTube, or reach out to one of us, reach out to one of us via social media or through our websites. Our websites are in the show notes. We made it easy for you. So make sure if we can assist in anything, either answering a question or maybe it's a service, please let us know. Of course, we are here for you. We know right now the honeymoon period is over. You're starting to see student behaviors. Maybe there's a kid on their desk. Maybe someone's running out of your classroom. Maybe someone's cussing you out. It could look a lot of different ways, but just know that the input and the way that you react in that situation is going to go much further with that child than anything that you do in regards to content. So please focus on that as we are getting into a really stressful time, holidays especially. We're going to see a little ramp up because a lot of stuff goes on during that time at home. So please know that everything that we're saying is in light of that. We're trying to give you strategies. We want you to have the best school environment possible, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. So with that, we appreciate you. If you like this podcast, please rate and review it or share it out with a friend, a colleague, someone that you know might need this episode. And it doesn't matter the space that they're in. It doesn't matter the title. Everyone's dealing with student behaviors, and we realize that. So with that, thank you, Kim, TJ, Mitch. Can't wait for the next episode. And with that, we'll see you next week.